It is February 26th, 26th, 2018. Hey, good morning, everybody. Actually, it's evening. This is a very special SketchCraft. So normally I like to do these podcasts in the morning, and I think you can tell I sound a little more awake. I think I sound a little more awake. But I wanted to do an interview with Ashley West, aka Gangfeather, talk about her new Kickstarter, which she's recently beginning to wrap up successfully, and she is available later at night because she's like sane. So I decided let's do a SketchCraft evening podcast, so all you out there can see how I sound like after I've been up for a while. So with that said, Ashley West, how are you?
Good. Yes, I like being a night owl. It's way more chill than waking up at the crack of dawn. So I'm right there with you. But yeah, hi, I'm Ashley West, and I guess I'm supposed to talk about myself a little bit, just so you know who I am.
Well, let's just give our really quickly. So if you've been following the cast for a while, Ashley, you've been fairly regularly on and off.
Yeah,
here
I was
for about
a
couple years now.
On. Yeah, I was definitely on. Did the game cast and the art, or I guess it was like the art cast where we talked about comics and stuff with you guys. So
and what we were
for a little while
on and things like that. And then you were with.
And we did One Punch Man.
We did One Punch Man.
That was fun.
That's still up there.
That was when I was brand new, and I was like, ugh.
And then we had you. You joined us at the Las Vegas Comic Con.
Yes.
Last year.
That was fun. Yeah, I got to meet you guys in person.
We got to see Ashley turn blue.
Yeah,
that's how
unfortunately.
I
froze. I froze inside the convention center.
I guess she thought because it was Las Vegas, she'd be awfully warm the whole time, but she doesn't realize how.
I just wanted to not have to put on a sweatshirt.
Yeah, I know. I feel so bad. I looked down. I'm like, oh my god, we're gonna kill her. Like,
I was like, I just went outside in the Vegas heat and thawed out. It still wasn't enough.
And I thought maybe you were doing Velthaneus cosplay or some trick like that. Like that was like.
Yeah, I know, right? That would be pretty cool.
All right, so let's just get on with it. Ashley, why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, maybe what initially drove you to pursue being, sort of a professional or up-and-coming professional artist and now writer, right? Because you're writing your book too.
Yeah. So, okay, well, just some fun facts about me. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I love video games, anime, and cartoons. I don't like adult shows. I know I'm an adult, but I do not like adult shows. So I like cartoons. I played lacrosse for 8 years, and I have a 16-year-old Jack Russell Terrier whom I've had since the 4th grade. And I like to draw.
So your Jack Russell's been there with you since what anime? What was your first?
Dragon Ball Z on Toonami. Toonami.
Toonami. And so, and he's followed you all the way through every episode of One Piece. You've watched all 1,392.
I have. Okay, it's more. It's really 824 or something like that. They have some in HD, so they add those. So, yeah.
And so you grew up really being influenced more by animation, you'd say, than comics or games? Or?
Definitely by video games, probably the most out of anything. And maybe, yeah, so I mean, I'll just get into that right now. As a child, I was basically anything that was dinosaur related, so Jurassic Park, anything that had to do with sharks, so any shark movie at all. I loved it. I wanted it, movies, books, whatever. If I was at the book fair, I'd walk out with a stack full of shark books and dinosaur books. Almost to the point where kids were like, "You're weird." And I was like, "You're mean." And then I even had a Magic School Bus learning game that I played on the computer where it was talking about dinosaurs and stuff. And I thought Tanzania was fictional. I was like, "Oh, this is a dinosaur place." I don't know, it was weird that. For some reason I remember that. I don't know why. My biggest art influences growing up were Disney and Don Bluth films, probably. And
so I take it you were a big fan of Land Before Time.
Yes I was. Oh my gosh, Littlefoot's mom, it made me cry every time. In fact, there was this one time where this plumber was like fixing our bathroom, I guess, and I was in right next to the room watching Land Before Time, right where Littlefoot's mom died, and I was trying not to cry because I didn't want to embarrass myself in front of the plumber. I just remember that. And then I think what like the thing about like Disney films is like I think it's like almost every kid is impacted by them in some way because it's practically impossible to miss them. They're just thrown at you. You know, your parents are just like, here, watch this. And yeah, I think the first like Disney films I like really remember were Hercules and Mulan as far as like coming out to video and us getting it on video. I mean, before that, like obviously like I saw like Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and Little Mermaid. Those were like the big three. And The Lion King. Those are okay. The big four. And then
you know, you say that, and I'm thinking, you know, looking at your art style, I can definitely see more of the Hercules.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. I liked Hercules a lot. That was probably one of my favorites. I mean, come on, it was just I don't know, it's cool. Like, and it had all the weird like characters and stuff. And then Looney Tunes inspired me too. Like Space Jam was the first the first movie. It was the first and only movie on VHS I wore out the tape on. Like I would watch it every night before I fell asleep. Right, and I'd always fall asleep kind of like right at the part where it would be like, you know, what's that? The Welcome to the Jam
credits,
or something.
When the titles showed up, you'd fall asleep.
Yeah, the most boring part, I'd like fall asleep at. And
I ever tell you my Space Jam story?
Yeah. Oh, you can tell it again, but I do kind of remember it.
So, look. I mean, two things. So I went to Comic-Con in 1996, and I was there. I went to this Batman and Robin panel, and they were going to show them the concept art for Batman and Robin. And we were all in the room. It was like maybe 50 of us, and it was just one letdown after another because they'd bring up these concept arts, and it was like Mr. Freeze looked like a giant Circus Soleil, crazy fucking nightmare. It was like, this is not Mr. Freeze. It's going horribly wrong. And after about like 40 minutes of this, I finally just asked, hey, I got to ask a question. I said, will Danny Elfman at least be coming back to score the movie? And initially they went, yes. And everyone started cheering because we hated, clearly everyone was like, the score to Batman Forever sucked. And then they stopped and talked and went, oh no, sorry, he's doing Space Jam. And we're like, fuck Space Jam. Cut to a year later, I wanted to go see the trailer for the Star Wars Special Edition. Or it was like 4 or 5 months later, November 96, somewhere around there. And apparently I called up every movie theater to see who was playing the trailer because I'd never seen Star Wars on the big screen. I had seen Return of the Jedi, but not the first one because I wasn't born. And they said, oh, it's playing with Space Jam. And I was like, fuck, I gotta buy tickets. So I was dating this girl at the time. I said, let's go see the Space Jam. But we're gonna leave when the trailer's She's like, you can't go see a movie, watch the trailer, and leave. I'm like, I assure you we can and we will. And she said, look, just stick through the first 10 minutes, and if it's horrible, then we'll go. And so the movie starts, and I see Bill Murray's in the movie, and I'm like, well, all right, I can stick around for Bill Murray, right? It can't be that bad. And I mean, it was like I would just kind of doze off, and then Bill Murray would show up. Then I would kind of chuckle or laugh, or I don't know. You know what I mean? It was like the one thing I had going for that film. But it was pretty. Yeah. It felt like I know people got a lot of love for it, but I grew up with when I was like 10 when Roger Rabbit came out, and to see like the complexity. Of the
I have
story.
Roger Rabbit notes. I'm gonna get to that.
Well, to see the complexity of the storytelling and the technical achievements of Roger Rabbit get kind of like diluted through the MTV music video of like Space Jam. It was like, and then you get 10 times more diluted when you get to, what was that one that came out with Brendan Fraser? Was that Back in Action? Like,
Looney Tunes Back in Action. Yeah, 2003. I saw that one too in the theaters. So I think, I was like 6th grade.
So you were too young to remember you were too young. Were you even born? You were too young to remember the Land Before Time Pizza Hut when that came out on video?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that came out 1987 or 1989. I wasn't born yet.
All right, so when it came out on video, they had this deal with Pizza Hut. And so they had these plastic like puppets that you'd put your hand into, and you can like, you know, and they were molded plastic. So they look pretty much like the dinosaurs in the cartoon, but they hurt the fuck out of your hand. So you'd shove your hand in there, and you could get and they were really hard molded plastic, and you had to really only a child could make these, clearly, because they were made in Taiwan. And you would put your hand in, and then like you'd get your hand stuck in the fucking dinosaur, and it just looked like you're pulling your hand out the dinosaur's ass. Like we would. It had the I think they were trying to go for, if you remember the Fievel plushie. When Fievel came out, the American Tail.
Fievel.
Yeah, they sold a shitload of these Fievel plushie things at Sears, I think it was. And so they were trying to go for that, and it backfired.
Yeah.
So my dad did security for these Pizza Huts, and so they gave us all these leftover Land Before Time magnets and the Land Before Time puppets. I just had like boxes full of these fucking plastic things, and we would just throw them at kids. So that's Land Before Time.
Well, this must have been later. This must have been like not after the first movie.
No, it was the first movie. It was like 89, 90, yeah. It was when it
what were you, like 11?
It was 10, 11, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you made it sound like you were working somewhere.
Oh, well, no.
Okay.
My dad, technically yes, because my father would make me do all of his paperwork.
I got you.
So my father, quick enough story, my father did his own security company, and he'd be doing so many things he couldn't keep his reports in order, so I would have to write all the reports at night. So
I got you.
He's like,
Yeah.
So anyway, so all right, so you.
Yeah, but like rolling off into like Roger Rabbit territory, going back to that, I did not like. I saw Roger Rabbit very close to when I not all the way through. And maybe this was because my parents didn't want me to see it, although they were not the type to be like, you can't watch that. I pretty much didn't have any limits, but I saw snippets of Roger Rabbit when I was a lot younger, and I didn't finally watch it in its entirety until I was like age 11, and I really liked it. I mean, just because it's like noir, like whodunit kind of thing, and then of course I always have kind of like this soft spot in my heart for like animation and live action together, and it was great. I love the movie. And another one to bring up is Cool World, and I saw that later in its entirety. I saw that when I was like 17 in its entirety. I rented it from like Blockbuster one day, and that movie is really cool. I know it bombed, and I understand why now that I've had it kind of explained through retrospectives and stuff like that, but just seeing, like, I think the idea is really, like, it's there, just with the cartoons, and I guess like the way, I don't know, it was just, but like, well, I'm not gonna try going into the story, but going into the look of things, I just really like the Cool World. Really inspired me, one, because it had like this like hot chick in it, and obviously you can see in Velthaneus I have a hot chick character in mine, and I really like that, like, strong, powerful, like, woman who almost uses her body as like a tool. She, even though she is kind of objectified, she still is kind of like a strong character in that world, in my opinion, like one of the stronger tunes, or doodles, sorry. So I mean, like, I don't know, it like, again, just a really good movie. What was that, Ralph Bakshi? Am I saying it right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ralph Bakshi.
Yeah. And I just gotta say, like, the characters that he came up with, like, using kind of like the 1940s, like, or what is it, 1940s, 1930s, 1920s? What would you call it?
The 30s.
Yeah. 30s. Yeah, kind of going, like, I love that look, and like bringing it kind of like, so it was like 1930s with meshed with like 1990s.
He sort of was melding that Don Bluth look with the older, because Bakshi did Fritz the Cat back in the 70s.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah,
which was very 30s inspired with
yeah, and it was also
themes,
adult, yeah, and the characters that they would come up with, just so like kind of like a wealth of inspiration, just like all the crazy, just like some of them just did not make sense. Very fever dream like designs, of these characters. Just, again, really cool world. And if anybody has not checked it out yet, because I think are a lot of people that have not seen this movie, maybe they missed it or something like that, you should definitely check it out. And the soundtrack to it is really cool. Like I love the soundtrack. They even got some old Moby songs in there in that movie.
I really think that that movie, if you structured it right, did a little trimming or a little snip here there, you could probably turn it into a 4-episode TV show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That would,
yeah, and that's like I think that was what I was trying to like explain earlier.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Like I feel like some things were kind of like not explained enough in that movie. It just kind of was like, boom, this is it. Like, this is the way things are because it is, you know. And it was like,
do you know anything about Ralph Bakshi?
Not really that much, except that he did Cool World and that he worked with Don Bluth, right? He worked with Don
Bluth. He's a director and he directed and produced the
so he had
Hobbit
nothing
films.
To do with Don Bluth. Let's put it.
Yeah, the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings animated films in the 70s. And Ralph was sort of like the Roger Corman of animation. So if you know anything about Roger Corman, he ran a studio that would do a bunch of low-budget films in the 70s and 80s. And a lot of talented people would get their start there. Like Jim Cameron got a start there. A ton of people. And so if you wanted to get into film, you could go there and Corman would pay you not much, but you could make a movie. And Ralph Bakshi was very similar around that time for animation. And he ended up doing, but see, he picked a fight with Disney in a way. He did these Pinocchio films, or in the mid '80s with Filmation, called like Pinocchio and the Dark Prince. You ever seen this?
Mm-mm.
Ever heard of it?
No.
Yeah, and it was like they was trying to like make these sequels to character stories that. Okay, so Disney did a Pinocchio movie, but they didn't create Pinocchio, right? That's from a book,
right?
Or I don't know, Brothers Grimm tale or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
So then what Ralph Bakshi did was they were trying to like spin off because Pinocchio and the something and give that sense of being a sequel, but not really, you know? And just, yeah, it didn't go well. And so you could see Cool World. Cool World's kind of like another step in that direction, saying, okay, let's take what they kind of did with Roger Rabbit, but let's do like the MTV heavy metal, you know, kind of like version of it. I mean, he'd done, I think he did American Pop. So he did a lot of rotoscope animation in the 70s. You know, rotoscope.
Yeah. So I was gonna say rotoscope. That was what the Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings was rotoscoped.
Most of his films, I think, most of Kim Basinger's stuff, a lot of her stuff's rotoscoped as well. Like even on the Cool World stuff.
The dancing, I could see that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a technique Disney used for a long time. If you go watch Cinderella, the dancing's all rotoscoped.
Well, it's just not as weird looking.
Yeah, because it's to get those.
There's another one out there that it was like, I don't know. I'm not saying it was He-Man, but it looked like He-Man. That was rotoscoped.
That's called Fire and Ice. So Ralph. Okay, that's Ralph.
I saw it, and it was really funny. There was this part where I think one of the natives, I don't know what it was, grabbed his like ass.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's really that's very
it's rotoscope
detailed. I know. I knew it was rotoscope, but I was just like, that's really something to zero in on.
And if I believe right, I think Bakshi also was in charge of the animation for the heavy metal movie. I want to say, yeah, I think so.
That sounds like it.
So I'm with you. I was in the 8th grade when Cool World came out, and you know those Scholastic book sales. Did you have those when you were in school?
Yeah.
So they've had these for a long time. They probably still got them. And they would have these little like flyers, and they were like, when I was a kid, there was like a 1 page folded in half. By the time I got to the 8th grade, it was like a booklet, like a 6 or 8 page booklet, and inside this was an advertisement for Cool World, which is crazy, right? Because I was like, that's a hot chick, and she's drawn, and it had that cool. The background for the poster was all hand painted too, right? And that.
Yeah.
And so I just remember stealing as many of those as I could. Like I got like 100 of them, and only pulling out the Cool World advertisement and just I staple gun them to my wall in my room. My dad hated it. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Spent all summer spackling the wall to fix it. But so that's awesome. So when did you first? Let me think about this for a second. So, fast forwarding from the mid '90s to you being a big fan of everything,
like a young child.
Yeah, from growing up in the
nine,
early
10.
2000s, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, early, because I really don't remember the 90s that well. I
okay, so
really don't.
2000s,
So.
the aughts. What do we call those? The thousands? What do you call
Yeah, I
that?
got like 3 good memorable years, the 90s.
So
But yeah,
what do
like
you
the
call the
early 2000s.
early 2000s? That's what you get.
What?
Is that what you
Yeah,
kids call it? Like
I guess like, yeah, I'm an early 2000s kid or whatever. But yeah, like my first like I was really played a lot of Nintendo as and Nintendo 64 like as a just like, kind of like in the 90 or late 90s and early 2000s. But then like I got a PS4 and then that didn't really work out so well because I never had a memory card. But then I got a PS2 and I knew how to work everything then. How it's all good
you
to
got a
go.
PS1 and then a PS2. I think you said
Yeah.
PS4.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
I
it
think
just jumped, like
yeah.
what? Okay, yeah, PS2. Yeah, PS1, then PS2. Yeah.
But when did you start drawing your own comics though? Like right around like that time where you were just drawing? I
I was
take
just
it.
drawing. I really was not a comic drawer. I was
Hmm.
just drawing characters, and I would just like make up my own characters, a lot. And but like I was really inspired by like the games that came out around that time. The PS2 like hits, which were like Jack and Daxter, Sly Cooper, and Ratchet and Clank, and they all came out like within a year of each other. So it was Jack and Daxter came out like 2001, like end of 2001. Sly Cooper and the other came out like 2002. So I was like 9 years old, and I loved those games. I played the crap out of them. I would replay them like all the time. I probably replayed each one like I don't know, like 5 to 10 times. So and it's really sad now because they probably wouldn't work if I tried. Like they're buggy and they can't keep up. Like so the only way I could probably replay them again is if I like got the digital downloads, which luckily they have. But yeah, like Jack and Daxter, I loved that game. Like I just like the characters and the world building and like the lore was really inspiring. Daxter, of course, was like super funny. Like he was like my favorite character for a while, and then like Sly 2, like Sly Cooper was a really fun game, and like Sly 2 was like a game changer. Like that game. Did you ever play Sly 2? Did you ever play any of
Yeah.
these games?
One second. Yeah, I have. The Insomniac. What is it? No. Yeah, the Insomniac did Sly Cooper?
Sucker Punch.
Sucker
Sucker
Punch.
Punch.
Sorry, I always forget their name. Sucker Punch.
Yeah,
Yeah, I did.
the first 3. They did the first 3. The last one was done by another developer. I don't know. Who
Yeah,
it
the
was.
first
I
one
forgot.
was fairly generic. The second
Right,
one
but it was
was
still fun. But the second one, holy crap!
yeah,
Like
it was like
you
taking the gameplay of the Thief series. If
yeah.
did you play Thief?
No,
Have you played Oblivion?
no.
Okay, well, so Thief was basically like a series of like where you're a thief and you got these objectives and it's like first person and Oblivion sort of had this assassins guild thing that was like that whole game has a playable profession in Oblivion, and Sly Cooper was a lot like that but with the third person mascot genre, and it blended the cinematics and the storytelling really, really well. It had that tone
Yeah.
shade that worked.
Oh yeah, it's like it's cell shaded, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's like yeah. So it's like that was like see, and anything that was cell shaded, like even like Cell Damage. I never played Cell Damage because I just didn't have an Xbox at the time, and then I never got my hands on the game. But that was really that one drew me in. I played that like a demo of that at Best Buy, but that was another a game again, another cell shaded game like Sly Cooper that I was just really drawn to. But yeah, Slide 2 with the heists and the stakeout locations of that, everything was like themed. So like you were like in France and everything was like blue and it was like a party. But you never saw anybody. You only saw like the bad guys just walking around on rooftops. But it was just so much fun. And it was the first time that you could play as Bentley and Murray too, like not just like Cooper. And each one, like if you had something that you needed to hack, you'd play as Bentley. If you needed muscle and brawn and kill, or like beat up a bunch of guys, you'd use Murray. And if you needed to be stealthy, then you'd use Sly. So it was like just really cool. And then Sly 3 even brought even more characters into the mix where you could actually play like minor characters as well. Not as often, but every now and then. So again, Slide 2 and Slide 3 and Slide 4 again are all great games. So I could go on and on about those games. And then
So
moving on
you
to
would
Ratchet.
say in high school and stuff, did you go to like art class?
What?
Were
Oh,
you in art
like
class?
art class? I was in AP. The only art classes I've ever been in were like, AP drawing and AP 2D.
So those are self-study classes, right?
Yeah, well, those are just classes where they're like, here's a project, do it, and then we grade you on it.
Right, they're like self-study. Like you got like a theme, and then you kind of go off on
Yeah,
that theme.
like they're just like, do your thing. Yeah, and then exactly. We did have a theme, or like we had to do a theme where we had to create like 12 pieces of kind of like this theme and AP 2D, and then we were graded on it and stuff, and there were critiques and everything.
Did you feel when you were in those classes? Did you feel like you were part of like the artists in there, or did you feel?
Actually, I like those were the classes I was like talkative in. Like those are the classes where the art teachers like, Ashley, be quiet. Whereas everyone, like, no teacher ever had to tell me to be quiet because I just didn't care about talking to other people in my other classes. But art class, I was like, yeah, let's talk, So I think I did feel a part. As far as, is that what you're trying to say?
I'm just curious, like, because I know for myself, I would talk a lot too in art classes when I was in high school, because I never enjoyed drawing in art classes. I would like to go home and do my work there. I didn't feel working in these high school art classes, which for me was like a big open studio with those flat desks that just a lot of fluorescent lighting, Yeah. Didn't work too well for me. So I was just curious.
Yeah, and you get your stuff out and you're only able to work for 40 minutes, then you got to put it back away. Yeah, I know. So can't really get comfortable. But
so
go ahead. Sorry.
Right. So post high school, say around PS3 or whatever era, like when do you start to make that transition and say, hey, I want to earn some bucks doing this, right? Like
right. So I kind of had this time period like between like graduating high school and like so that would have been like 2010 and then 2012 where I like didn't get a lot of drawing in. Because I was like focused on like what you're supposed to do after you graduate high school, go to college and do stuff, and I did like community college, and after 2 years of that and like kind of working a part-time job, I was like, I don't really care. I don't want to do this anymore. It's not that I couldn't do it. It just wasn't doing anything for me. Not at all. Because I didn't take any art classes. I took like art appreciation, but that's not drawing art. That's like learning about art terms and stuff.
Yeah, it's like
and
art
so like
history.
Exactly. Yeah. And so like I know like some art terms. I mean, like it's good like knowledge to have. Some art terms. But
impressionism.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Tenebrianism. Whatever.
A lot of isms.
But I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna quit college, and so I did, and I started drawing again, a lot, like every day, like 2000, like I guess it would have been like 6 years ago almost, where I just like I bought a sketchbook, and like ever since then I was just like, I'm gonna draw every day, and I'm gonna really focus on cartoons. Because in high school, they want you to focus on realistic shit all the time. They don't want you to draw
why
cartoons.
that is, right?
Not really.
Because you can see a result.
Yeah.
So in order to draw things from your imagination, as you know, Ashley, for the audience, you need to learn these fundamental set of rules: construction, perspective.
Right. And maybe it helped me. I don't know. I mean, I did do portraits. I seriously did like 200 portrates in ink.
Yeah, but you were looking for photos, and so
yeah, I know. And
again,
it might. I feel like it might have helped in some way. I'm not sure.
It might have helped. But what it really does is it enables a kid to walk in and then walk out and show the result, and they can go back the next day and get a slightly more shaded, better result. They haven't learned anything, and this is why when in the West. And I've seen this 100 times, when people learn that way of drawing, then they go to a college where they need to act, maybe somewhere where you have to learn design, like real design, say like art center,
right,
or something like that.
It's completely different.
They have to untrain everything that you've learned.
Yeah, I did. I had to untrain myself. Like I had to learn like how to draw like cartoons and stuff, like good cartoons. Like because like I could draw cartoons, but they sucked. I mean, they did. Like I look back at my work in 2012 now, and I'm like, it's like oh, like but like if I looked at like if in 2012 if you were to like, hey, draw this person, like draw a portrait of the person, it's probably pretty good. Probably look just like them. But again, it's a different kind of skill, really, different kind of, and so, and I frankly don't like it. It's very boring, and it's not popular at all. Nobody wants that, So I just drew cartoons and I bought a bunch of books and kind of looked at them and kind of followed the guidelines, or I just looked to real life, like I'd look at like realistic images and then I'd be like, all right, now I'm going to cartoonify this somehow, and then just developing my skills, and of course like being inspired by art, like a lot of what is it called concept art from like Ratchet and Clank was very inspiring for me, which the first few games I don't believe Creature Box they were in on them. They didn't really show up in Ratchet and Clank games until like Tools of Destruction, which would have been like 2008. So like I was like 16, 15 around there. And so I definitely was like very much inspired by their art as a teenager. And and you could definitely see some influences from them in my art, I'm sure. But you can see there's so many. I've told people have told me before my art's kind of eclectic. Like it's like it kind of like has a lot of different styles in it, and I'm like, yeah, I guess I don't know, but I don't know. So
then we met around 20. Was that 2015, 2016? What?
I think I was like 2014 or something. I liked one of your images.
What was it?
I was like on. It was weird. I kind of remember. I like was looking on Instagram and I was trying to look for. I don't know. I was looking at. For some reason I don't really do this anymore, but I was looking at a hashtag, right? And you'd hashtag something, and it was like Star Fox Adventures, the one where he's like has Tricky and Crystal, and he's like has the staff.
Oh, the Critters piece. Or are you talking about the Copic one that I did?
No, I'm talking about the Copic one. Yeah, it's like Star Fox and then Tricky and Crystal are like kind of plushies under his feet. Yeah, that was the one I saw and I was like, that is amazing. So I like followed you and then for a while like I messaged you on I friended you on Facebook, and then eventually I was like asked you a question, like it had to do with I don't know, it was like about like copyright stuff or whatever, stuff that I just am like, I don't know these things. Like usually it's very technical stuff, all these technical.
Yeah, it was about copyright if I remember right. And like my typical reply is like, here's what they will tell you, and you should listen to that. And then now here's how it really works, and this is off the record, because I don't solicit legal advice. But here's how it's going to actually work in the real world,
Right. Yeah. And so and then but the cool thing was you actually gave a crap. You actually were like, oh yeah, let me just give you or tell you things that I know, And then eventually after a year or so, you just like messaged me and was like, hey, you want to be on a podcast? And I was like, yeah, I do. That's so cool. Oh my gosh. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of your art really reminded me of myself. Like,
yeah.
I didn't know you personally, but as an artist, I could see a lot of
and it's so funny, because like looking back at then, I'm like, I don't know what you just like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure she's got potential. Like, it'll happen. Like, I guess that's what you're thinking. I don't know.
No, I just saw a lot of myself.
I look at my art back then, and I was like, it was good, but there were still some things I'm like, ooh,
Yeah. I think, I don't like this about me, but just I hit a point where I had started out professionally around 2006 with a plan in comics, and I got derailed into becoming a production artist on a bunch of titles that never shipped because we went through this thing called the recession. And by the time you had met, you'd reach out to me, I just saw you where I felt I was before I got derailed, you know? And I was like, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your life, but if I could go back and talk to, 22, 23-year-old Rob, you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah,
artist.
and that's the age I was.
Yeah, yeah. And if I could go back in time and say, hey, and be able to say, look, you can still grow, because I had grown, but
Yeah.
there was just things that I didn't do because I was told there's no place for that in the market. There's no place for this in the market. And
Yeah.
during the course of those years for me, this thing Kickstarter started. And I came to Kickstarter in 2010 when I want to say like the first few months when it was up, or the first year, like when Dave.
I did too. I didn't do a Kickstarter. I did Indiegogo, but I was right there too.
It was 2009, 2010. They had just done the Kill Screen. Kill Screen did Kill Screen was a sort of hoity-toity, all text-driven gaming publication. It came and went, but they had raised six or 10 grand on Kickstarter, which was a lot. I mean, at the time, 2009, 2010, I was like, wow, you can raise 10 grand. I had to get my head around what Kickstarter was. And Dave Halverson wanted to relaunch GameFam, and we're having a hard trouble with advertising dollars. And I explained to him, I said, look, here's this Kickstarter thing where you can do things that don't work in retail. And so, like your art, look, first off, I think there's more diversity in art in comics these days than there has ever been. That being said, it's also a lot of the same. it's geared toward a lot of the same audiences.
Oh my gosh. If you look online Webtoon, it's like there's some really good stuff online Webtoon. There really is. But there's some stuff where I'm just like, what? Why?
And you sort of get a feeling that a lot of them are just remaking the last thing that is popular, right? Oh, that's working, so I'm going to make more of that. They're not, very few of them, I get the feeling, are coming from a place of I don't want to say opinion, but of true, I don't want to say this. I guess there's no way to say this without coming off like a douche. I don't find a lot of authenticity in a lot of it. I find a lot of it just I don't get a sense of who the artist is. I just get a sense that they're producing work.
Right. And that they can produce it consistently, whether it's good or not,
And so you have a unique voice with your art. And I was just like, if you ever asking, if you needed someone to brush by, you know what I mean? I'll give you an unfiltered,
And,
hopefully not a non-motivational response. But when did you first start? So after we met, you started doing podcasts, and, obviously with the Kickstarters. When did you decide to say, hey, I'm going to hunker down and get started on Velthaneus, which is currently the Kickstarter you have up now, which you've hit the 100%, 101%, whatever it is.
Yeah, like 104%. Yeah. But I'm still taking pledges. You can still pledge if you want to. Yeah. But we'll get back to that. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, so I don't know, it was like 2013-ish. I had like a mentor figure from high school. He was like, hey, you have these characters, and he's a writer. You have these characters, and are you doing anything with them? Are you going to do anything with them? I was like, I haven't really thought about it. I just draw them. And then he just was like, well, I think you should. And he even kind of tried to work with me for a little bit on it, and it ultimately did not start out. He was writing, and I was like doing the art for it, and and again, it's like someone writing your own characters, and you kind of like, well, it's not really, but again, I tried it, and I drew like the whole entire thing. It was called like Depths Rising. And it was yeah.
Never put rising in your title.
Right. I know. Hey, trust me. Like, this is why, again, it's hard. It's hard to work with two people. That's why I don't work with my sister anymore. I used to run Gang Feather with her. It was like our little business thing, and it's totally different than it is now. And I was like, you're bossy. I don't like you. And she's like, well, I don't want to be in this this
and your
company
feet are
anymore.
big,
So yeah, and so that's why I work alone, and that's still why I work alone, is because I have full control. But anyway, so yeah, Depths Rising was what it was called. Drew the whole thing. It was not good, and the art, not the writing. The writing was fine. The writing was very good, actually. He did a really good job. The art was terrible. Like, not it, just the pacing and the panel shots I chose. And just the art quality itself, not good. Just the way I chose to color, again, all learning experiences. And so he told me, hey, why don't you retool this? Or I was like, yeah, I guess I will, and then we'll come back together. Well, we never did. He got busy with his own stuff, and I was like, okay, cool. So I completely just wiped the story clean. Was like, okay, well, what do I want to do? And I was like, I took a psychology class in like college, which was probably the most useful class in college that I took. And they talked about the id and the superego and the ego. And I was like, that's really cool. I want to do that. And I think you could create a lot of cool characters around that because it's like psychology and you could make it really kind of like dreamlike and use a lot of metaphors for characters and stuff. And so I want to do that. So I wrote a story and Thane's always been there. I've been drawing Thane since I was like 18. So he's been around the longest and he's changed a lot. But I always wanted him to be some kind of like big, tough fighter dude. So I was like, well, let's have him, still in it. And then, like Colby and Alexa were around and Ogle were around still at that time. The only character that I really needed to create was Id. He was a new character, which they are my 5. And I'll get to them in a minute. But anyway, so I rewrote the whole story, kind of tried to, thought of all the beats. I knew beat structure and everything. And I had a whole bunch of it written. I worked on it for like a year. And then I talked with you about it. I was like, hey, so this is like what's going on. It's kind of hard. And you're like, you know what? Let me send you like what you need to know kind of about the story and make sure that you're, hitting these points. So like I kind of read what you had to say. And I was like, these are excellent points. And I see all the problems that are in my work. And I know what I need to fix. And so I fixed it all. And it took me like, I don't know, 9 months or so to get it all.
About another year.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But I was willing to, because I loved this story so much and I knew I know it had good potential that I was willing to do that. I didn't care. I'd already started over once. This was not as bad as the first time. So I was willing to do it again. And I was able to keep some things. So
well, I do think also actually one of the points of advice I try to give out to anybody, including myself, is, if you're going to write your own material, and you're afraid of really writing a shitty story, that's good. You should always be questioning the quality of your work. That's how you grow.
Yeah.
However, having written or drawn for books that had very simple scripts, to put it lightly, and some of these books have never shipped, I can tell you, look, I know what it's like to get a review where people said, the art's nice, the writing sucks. I've had those reviews. And so, now I'm not knocking the writers. I'm just saying, look, writers get hammered worse than artists. Really, they do.
Yeah.
If you ever go read reviews for novels, people you go read the Harry Potter reviews on Amazon. Oh, it's like can't write.
Yeah, like I already know because I've gotten critiques already that I've fixed. I've fixed since then. Nobody's complaining anymore.
We'll talk about that in a second. Well, one second. So
anyway.
So my advice was that if you're afraid of getting the review, the story sucks, but the art is cool, you can get that on your own. You don't need to involve another person for that. You don't have to worry about it because you can't control the quality of a script if you're not writing it. You know what I mean? You have some level of control when you're writing it, to the extent that we all have, talent that just at some point you're like, well, that's the story and it's either as good or as not good as we perceive it to be, or we can improve upon in later iteration. But that fear of I can't write because I'll get a negative review for the story is like, if the medium is primarily visual, and I know you have a hybrid product and we'll talk about that in a second too, but if the medium is primarily your art is a big focal point of the book, make certain that's on point. And then, don't stress so much about becoming the world's greatest writer, but do make certain that, you got these little checklists of like story, mechanical, constructional development tools that it's like a checklist where you go, does this character do this? And why do they do this? If they don't, if I haven't answered that, someone's going to ask that question, and then once you do that, if they check those lists, then make the story, and don't stress so much about it. I just think that there's a little bit of that demystification, with that sort of thing. And especially for artists, because it's one thing to get through the art and then you're like, oh, I want to tell this great story. And then it's always a rule of compromises. Every time you write something down or every time you draw something, it's never quite as good as it was in your head, right? Like it's always like, never quite as good. But it's to the average person looking at it for the first time, they'll be like, oh, that's fucking amazing. They don't know what's in your head. So
yeah, exactly. And but yeah, so continuing on, I was finally able to what is it, this year in September, yeah, it was like September, release the first page of my comic to Lion Webtoon, and ever since then I've kind of been working on it. And I just do the best I can. I just get a page out, as I post it, and everyone's been super cool online, but I guess again, the most like what you were saying is at first I got a lot of this art is amazing, but I don't understand what's happening in the story. And I was like, oh, and then I had to figure out where to put my word bubbles and what should be said in those word bubbles. And once I did that, once I really focused on that and was like, all right, I fixed it, no problem. Like it wasn't, and it really wasn't that. It was just pacing and ordering what I had to say and what I needed to say in the right spots. And once I did that, everyone was like.
And basically, what you're saying is that you used you posted online through Webtoon.
Line Webtoon. Yeah.
Line Webtoon. So you basically used the webcomic site as a way to sort of
like
beta
a focus test.
Yeah, beta test and iterate quickly on just presentation and clarity of like user feedback versus saying to your followers on Instagram, read this because good luck with that. I think
right.
But that's really smart actually. Like being able to. The first time I sort of heard that technique being used was did you see the movie The Martian?
No. But I saw I saw like the end and I wasn't watching it. I was
That's unfair to you. You're doing that at the service. It's come on. So it's like watching the end of Titanic and going, I don't know what the big deal is. So but The Martian was a book that was written and the guy posted it online, and for a long period of time, the community would read and give feedback like, oh, this is how the science would actually work or this. And so there was this level of like iteration and vetting the mechanics of the story. So by the time it was handed, it got picked up, it got printed as a novel. It was pretty well developed. And then when it was handed off to a script, they didn't have to, you had a pretty solid piece. And it's this iteration on story that I'm very interested in. Not so much saying I'm going to post stuff every week so people come back and they keep reading it every week, because I don't even know if people remember your shits out every week, but they will come back in chunks. Maybe a couple weeks to come back to read a section. But then when they say, hey, I don't get pages 6 through 12, like what's going on there, and you go, well, that's my comic, deal with it. You've actually taken that as like editorial feedback from actual readers, right? Like, and has I take it that's helped you.
Yeah, it has. It has. Like, at first, it kind of stings, but then I'm like, well, it's only going to make it better because, I'm the one, when I write this, I'm like, I understand everything that's going on. But then I have to remember that I may not be explaining this to somebody who has no idea what's going on. And I have to make sure I'm doing that. And it's just learning to do that. And so that feedback, I've learned to be like, thank you, because it's really not that hard to fix. It always has to do with the text. It never has to do with the art, so it's like, well, that's super easy, so you just have to kind of think and retool a little bit. So speaking of tools, what kind of tools do you prefer to use on Velthaneus? Velthaneus. So I use so everything is drawn, like all the final stuff is drawn traditionally with pencils. I don't do inks, or I don't color all the interiors, just pencils. And I shade with pencils, kind of like a cell shaded look. But anyway, as far as the pencil goes, I just kind of use two different kinds. I use 2B and 4H. So the light, the light pencil, 4H for the lights, and 2B for the dark areas.
You use mechanical pencils or wood?
Yes, I use mechanical. Mm-hmm. And the 2B is like really good because it's very soft, so you can kind of cover a lot of ground, and it's pretty dark. But then, like, depending on what's in the panel, I will sketch it out digitally. Like if it's a small panel, I'll usually sketch it out digitally because it's very it has a very specific space that it needs to fit in. Like I don't do that thing where you get your comic page, I guess like rule out all the panels and then you draw it like that. I can't work like that. I'm too detailed for that, and I want to be able to fit in as much detail as I can. So I tackle each panel by itself. Usually, and it's not, and there's a lot of, each close up is tackled like on its own.
But you're not drawing
like,
each panel at full size.
No.
Pages.
No.
You're drawing them at the panel size that they would be.
Yeah, pretty close. A little bit bigger than normal, but that's standard. Like what is it, 2/3 or what is it? It's
67% or something.
67%. Yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah, but I made the mistake. I remember when I was first working on Mosaic. I was doing this. This Mosaic was this book that Adam Kogan and I were working on, where he wrote it, and about these kids that go to another dimension. And we were pitching it at Comic Cons. And so the first time I did these pitch pages, I was drawing every panel like animation layouts, like
super
8.5 by 11.
Yeah.
For every panel.
Yeah. Like, no, I don't do that. Yeah. Now, if it's a big panel with a lot of stuff in it, I will draw it like 11 by 17, but it's got to take up a pretty good portion of the page. And then, but like all the small panels, again, those are just, sometimes I'll put 2 on a page and print them out, Well,
I have a question. Your book is square though, right? So it's 8.5. So 11 by 17 isn't really the ratio.
No, it's not. But I have panels that are around that ratio.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they're like the larger panels, and like that's why drawing digitally helps sometimes to keep everything in ratio, so that you're not accidentally cutting off things that you can't fit in the panel by drawing it traditionally. Now,
so you're setting up a lot of your panels digitally.
I set them up digitally, sketch them out digitally. There are a few that are like, if I have Thane and it's most of his body in the panel, chances are I'm probably going to draw it traditionally with pencil, sketch it out traditionally first, then just do it. Like everything completely traditional. Because there's a lot of control that you kind of lose with those larger characters. You can't look at it all at once. You have to zoom in and zoom out, and it gets difficult and frustrating. So some panels I just kind of start to know better, how I should tackle it after a few tries. The program I use is, or app, whatever you want to call it, is Photoshop. So I use Photoshop. Yeah.
It's a program.
Program, app.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're using Photoshop.
That's the only
CC
thing I
Cloud,
use.
or?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I don't really look.
You pay that monthly fee?
Yeah, that's exactly what I
do.
I pay the fee. Just give me the applications. No, but yeah. So I use just Photoshop, and then I use InDesign for the text, inserting the text and writing.
So let's explain this to people really quick. Slow down for a second. So for your book, you have a comic / novel, a novella format, right? Yeah. So where you have comic book panels with word balloons, but you also have paragraph text, similar to a novel format.
And what that text is really for is if the characters have a lot to say and I can't fit it in a tiny little bubble, they could say it in that text, and it's usually right underneath or right above. It flows. It basically, it's not a illustration to go along with the text. It is text, then it continues in sequential art, then it continues in text. There's no like overlapping.
Which also allows you to draw the things that are worth drawing, and you're not spending a lot of time drawing a character walk out a door, which is just
right. Like I'm not gonna like what's more fun to look at, a person groveling, crawling on the floor, bleeding, or a person like grabbing something off a desk. I'm just gonna leave. I'm gonna say like, oh, he grabbed that off the desk. Like I'm not gonna draw that because I've only got so much to say and so much time. And I'm gonna draw the things that people really want to see.
Yeah, in a movie, they don't make a big deal out of people picking things up that are not inconsequential to the story. It's just things actors do. And so this was serendipitous when you first showed me the story and we were talking about this. And you were saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing all this as a comic. And then I don't know if the novel thing worked out, but I remember it's what I was doing with Game Cave at the time. And I said, I really think this format would work for you, you know what I mean? More than I think even you had planned. I think you were thinking maybe like those boxes of text that you see sometimes in a comic book, right? Like Spawn and Cerebus did more of that back in the day, where they'd have like blocks of text. But the problem I found with that format was that reading large paragraphs of text like that with comic book fonts is weird. And two, it just, I thought, you know, I'd been reading light novels where you have the text on one page and a big image. And I always felt like the image was just duplicating something that I'm reading about. I couldn't quite get the point of that, you know? And so I said, hey, why don't you use InDesign? Because I think you already know how to use it, right? To like
a little bit. I kind of forgotten a little bit, but I get it. You know, I had to.
I remember that sigh of exhaustion you had when I was like, hey, here's another program that you need to learn to accomplish this thing that you're just trying to do. It's frustrating, right? Like when you feel like, oh no, I got to do another fucking thing. But
I fixed it.
I'm going to let you talk for a second, but the benefit to that is that now you're able to flow thousands of words worth of text through InDesign. And that, I mean, and look, if you want, you could take those same thousands of words and export an EPUB and just, you know, fill in some of the dialogue boxes, and you got a novel. You got 2 books for the price of one, you know, down the way. Like you could easily, 3 months maybe, convert the story to just a Kindle format with no pictures if you wanted to.
Probably. But so it's like, it's really cool. And I like the text because it's just a way to speed the story along. It's a way for me to get it out faster because I'm just one person. You know, it's really hard to do one comic book by yourself. I don't know how, you know, some of these guys do it. Well, maybe I do.
It's hard to do one book by yourself.
It's hard to do. It's really freaking hard to do one book
consistently,
by yourself.
and to tell a story that has depth. I mean, how many issues?
And the art is really good and all this stuff.
And also, how many issues with a comic book do you have to read where you're just flipping? Like, if you're gonna flip a few pages and they're text, how long did it really take me to write? A night or two, you know, to kind of write it. But I mean, with art, you're like, that could be a week, that could be 2 weeks worth of effort. And even in manga, or, you know, like you and I are a big fan of manga, the hidden secret to manga is there's a lot of assistants.
There are.
And they don't get credit. You know, it's not one person doing everything. Sometimes it is. Like Miyazaki did all of his Nausicaa.
I mean, like,
took him 12 years.
Maybe in the early, I know when One Piece first started, I think it was just Ichiro or Oda Sensei doing it by himself. But I mean, like, it was just when he was starting out, he was like 17. But now, he does have people helping him and stuff. But again, he still is at the forefront and of the comic, of the manga.
Right, but to produce hundreds of pages, 200, 300, 400 pages a year.
Completely shonen. You know, there's just no way one person could do it by themselves.
Yeah, they just give themselves a heart attack. So this is, I think this is a fantastic compromise, and all art is compromise, folks. Like, all art is compromise. If you think, well, they could have done this here, they could have done there, they probably did it, and it wasn't going to get done on time, and something had to be compromised. And I think this mixing of novel and comic book is the perfect, because you have these limited amounts of pages you can do, right? You literally have, you know, they say think outside the box, Ashley. You have to think in a box with the comic. You have a structure, a format. And this, I mean, like, I've read almost every page. I think I'm not the most caught up on the webcomic, but having read a significant portion of your work, you know, and compared to what I've done on my own as well, like, it's just great to see that much story packed in what is essentially 20 pages. Like, you could, that could be 120 pages of comic, literally.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I try to move it along as quickly as I can, but keep it fun and understandable for people, like what's going on, you know. And
so you use Photoshop for colors. Do you do your comic book lettering in Photoshop, or do you do the lettering in InDesign?
I do it in Photoshop because sometimes I actually just draw it myself, you know. But there may be a few things that once it's all done, I go back and fix, and like the lettering that is, and like insert, you know, a different type of text. You know, I don't know. You know, it's just kind of like that.
And so those files get put into InDesign as a single image, and then you flow the novella text through the document in InDesign and export from InDesign to PDF or JPEG or whatever else you use in post, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like right now, like I kind of like right now what I'm doing is I'm kind of using that like a page, just a page as a template, kind of the placement of where the text should go. And then what I'll do is I'll copy and paste it into Photoshop and then create an image. Like right now, that's what I'm doing. Just because it's faster and
Yeah,
I
to
can
comp up
understand it
very
better.
quickly.
Yeah. But then I'll go back and I'll have to do, put every page into InDesign and, to get
And
it
then you flow the
formulated.
text and
Yeah, but that'll be easy. That'll
yeah, it's super
because
easy to flow text. I mean, could you imagine? I think that was the one fear I had, that you were going to try and flow text. And when I say flow text, folks, it means you're drawing these boxes in InDesign. You're drawing paragraph boxes, and they have the columns of text that when it ends, it links to another box and links to. In Photoshop, you can't link across multiple boxes like that.
Yeah, it's a like you said, it's a nightmare to try to flow text in Photoshop. It's
Or
just
Illustrator
not possible.
even. Like I've seen people use Illustrator as a hand-me-down version of InDesign. Like there's a reason.
Oh yeah.
It's also a reason why I don't think an iPad can replace a desktop at all. Because if you're going to do any kind of publishing, you're going to need some publishing software, and this is. Could you imagine trying to do this workflow on an iPad exclusively? Like
no way.
Impossible. And then really quick, what do you use to write? What kind of software?
I use Scrivener, and the mentor that I was telling you about earlier, that kind of like just was the catalyst for me writing just a story in general. He was the one who was like, yeah, I use Scrivener and it's really good for organizing your stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So I got Scrivener, and I've had it for like, that's pretty much what I've been using all this time to write on. So
that's all I use. Yeah, I use Scrivener, and then I do my typing in Google Docs.
Yeah, I do my script typing in Google Docs. So.
I find Google's spell check is the best in the world. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
They recognize, I don't know how many, like, because I do a lot of real world, like if I want to reference Mononoke, Google Docs knows what that is.
They understand what that is. Yeah. Yeah. Like, this is, but still, did you confuse this with no,
with Michelin? Like, no, I don't want Michelin. Like, yeah. And then let's go right into, so when you're, we didn't talk about character design. I just want to talk a little quickly about character design, and then we'll wrap it up. So when you go about designing one of these characters, right, or any new character for the book, what kind of goes through your mind from beginning to end? Like, what is your process?
So I like drawing the characters pretty simple. It's just kind of like loosely drawing a shape and then kind of like being like, I see something. All right, let's build upon it. And then the hardest part, in my opinion, is just creating a theme for that character and all their accessories that they're going to wear. Like, that's so hard to me. I'm like, what are they going to wear? Like, I don't know. So that's like the hard part.
Have you ever designed so much stuff on a character, and then when you start drawing them, you're like, this is too much stuff?
Yeah, I was just talking with you about that before we started the podcast. But yeah, definitely. And I'm like, and then that's when I go, all right, redesign, simplify. So.
What part of designing characters do you find the most fun versus, say, the most hard? Like if you were to sit down and say, I got these, I need these. I'm gonna have my characters. They're gonna have to fight some aliens or some shit. And you gotta like invent some alien.
I like drawing their faces and like how they're reacting to it. That's the fun part. Like, is that a good answer? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I very much like to focus on expressions for characters. I try to make them as crazy as I can, especially for the guys, because I don't know. It's hard to do for women. It's really hard to do for women. It's like it's a lot harder. I'm still learning how to do that, but it's coming along there too. So.
And have you done character design for freelance before?
Yeah, not really. No. Mm-hmm. The closest thing I've probably done is like the Megavision stuff, but that's all like licensed characters stuff.
Yeah, I'm thinking more like original characters.
Yeah. No.
I've been trying to get Tom to put you on a book for years.
Yeah.
Like for some reason, Ashley, they're like, she's friends with Rob.
I don't know if he likes me.
Huh? Tom doesn't like anything. Like, don't worry about that. It's never take it personal.
Yeah,
but
I try not to. So.
Yeah, but I mean, like, your character designs are fucking hella fresh. So, do you think, like, I know these things get sidelined, but let's say post Velthaneus, like, if you got an opportunity to say, hey, you know, like Cartoon Network, or even say like a web animation, if they were going to do some paid thing where like, hey, we want you to design some characters.
Like, hey, Adult Swim. Yeah.
What would it take for Ashley to stop working on Velthaneus for a year to go do character designs?
I don't know.
A truckload of money. I
really don't know.
I really think, like, though, seriously though, like with I know right now the big character design motif in American animation is like that Adventure Time, you know, kind of like quirky, cartoony thing. But a lot of what you're doing really reminds me of like Liquid Television and Aeon Flux and the Max.
Yeah, the Max. Yeah. The Max. Cool.
Yeah, and like it's sort of a grown-up version of the Don Bluth thing. Like that sort of thing could easily come back, and so
yeah,
that's.
I would love for Velthaneus to be like part of like some kind of new Liquid Television. That'd be cool. But in my mind, I always see Velthaneus as like a cartoon too, or you know, like animated. Like kind of that's how everything plays out. I'm sure that's how everything plays out in your head as well, with your stuff. I don't know, just assuming, but.
No, my characters usually they're mad that they're just sitting on my they're taking too fucking long, like, you know, like, so it's a whole other problem over here. So let's just wrap this up. So you've been promoting Velthaneus. Let's talk about, so you've been publishing on Line Webtoon for about 6 months now?
Yeah, almost 6.
And then you put together the Kickstarter and it's up, and initially you had a little bit of some trouble, I think. Like, was it like a slow movement? Right?
Oh yeah, like just people. Well, yeah, like life stuff too, and then like, you know, just people being like, I don't understand it, and I'm like, oh right, hold on, let me figure this out. So yeah, but now it's all good to go.
Yeah, and so what have challenges are? But I want to say, in terms of promoting your Kickstarter, like what challenges have you come up against? It's like, you know, go buy my stuff without like feeling like you're yelling, go buy my stuff.
Yeah, it's just like kissing your own ass, kind of hard. Like I'm not the type to do that, and so like this whole month, that's what I've been doing, and it's like, at first, I was like, all right, you know, it took me a couple days to take off my introvert hat and kind of get out there, and then I finally started getting good at it and being like, all right, how can I make this juicy and fun to read? And so I kind of like did a little, like, you know, had more fun with it, and I started using a little bit more emojis in my stuff to get people's attention and things like that.
I think what Ashley's talking about, folks, is that when you put your Kickstarter up, usually the rule is this, right? The general rule is that you have your first 24 hours and your last 24 hours, and then they have this thing called the trough. And people go, well, if you haven't made 50% of your funding in the first 24 hours, it's probably not going to make it. And that's stupid. I'm telling you,
total bull.
There are no rules.
Bull right there.
Yeah, there are no rules.
That's never happened to me. I've done 3 campaigns, and it's always slow at first, and then the middle is, I'd say the middle is like, I don't know. This campaign has been so steady. It's not even funny. Like every day I got pledges.
But that's also because you've been promoting every day too, right?
I have been,
in quirky ways, and doing interviews with. You did one with with Crowdfunding Roundup. Right?
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Well.
Or they
not
did a
really.
review, right? But you did a podcast with the Canned Air, right?
Canned Air, yeah. And then I had a couple people, Comic Central and Comics and Cashmere. They did articles.
Oh, nice.
And. Yeah, and then, I mean, yeah, like the crowdfunding roundup, I think they just posted mine on their website.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. But yeah, like it's really hard. I think the hardest part is like the most successful though thing. It's the hardest, but it's also the most successful is like going to people you know and just being like, hey, you know, I think you're interested. Blah 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 blah. Here's my Kickstarter. This is that. I hope you can back. Except say it better. And a lot of times it's really weird who doesn't respond at all that you thought would respond, who just says, oh, congratulations. And then there are people who like you did not expect to respond at all. You've never talked to before. You may just see them as acquaintances or something like that. And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. Man, this is great. And then, it's just really weird who will respond and who won't. So yeah, but that's like the most successful thing. Like anybody that's like gonna run a Kickstarter, like direct messaging people, as hard as it is and as spammy as it kind of is, like the best thing you can do is kind of like just go to who you know first, like your followers or your friends and family. And also like maybe say like, hey, remember this time we did that? But don't be like super like, hey, remember this time? Now give me money. Just like be I mean,
That time we
like,
got a Slurpee, I paid for that shit. I spent $40.
yeah, like like just try to be as natural as possible.
I know we haven't talked for
But
years, and your mom died last year, but I have this Kickstarter, and it'd be really nice if.
yeah,
Don't do that, folks.
yeah.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I could have put a sob story on there, and there was no need for that because that's terrible.
Yeah, because well,
So,
plus you're it's not a GoFundMe. You're trying to,
yeah.
Pitch this and get it produced and become an independent publisher, artist, writer, and publisher, and build a fan base, not a pity base. I'm not a big fan
and that's exactly. I was like,
yeah.
I'm always like, in return, you can get these really sweet things. Really, if you're interested, it's not like, hey, give me money and I'm just gonna, yeah. But anyway, but I don't think I ever explained what Velthaneus was actually about.
Oh, we've talked about it. Well, I mean, we'll get over the flow of the actual story. I just want to get through.
Okay, I just make sure we didn't like gloss over that. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, okay, we'll just wrap it up. So, basically, the gist of the story of Velthaneus, if you're going to explain it to me, you're going to say, hey, I got this Kickstarter, you should go pledge it right now. I did all these things. Here's my story. Here's all the things to get here. Now, what is it specifically you're pitching?
All right, so Velthaneus is it's a comic. So it's about this guy named Velthaneus. He's a titular character, but I call him Thane. This is his nickname. Thane, and he's a prisoner, fettered by the constraints of a kind of like a penal colony called Terrapin. And it's like I said, it's a penal colony. It's a stronghold, and it dwells. It's kind of in this cavern area. They live in a cave system, and there's all these monsters called trogs, which harkens to the scientific term for something that lives in a cave, a troglobite. So they're called trogs. Anyway, so when he escapes purgatory with the power of raw id, the source of impulse within all the Velthians, that's what his species is called. He's called a Velthian. Will he basically... He gets out of prison, but will he liven up the streets of Karst? And will he be like the cool party dude, or will he like go insane and kind of be consumed by the same destiny that swallowed the city 3 decades prior? So it's kind of like the premise, like what's going to happen to this dude? Is he going to be okay, or is he not? And a lot of weird shit happens. A lot of weird shit. So, but that's kind of like the basic premise of the story. And I have 5 main characters, so I guess I should talk about kind of their personalities and what they do real quick. Yeah. So like Thane, he's really hairy, he's really big. He's kind of like, he's an id wrangler, so he wrangles ids for the prison. It's kind of like his get out of jail card, his good behavior. Mm-hmm. Like if he wants to get out, he has to learn good behavior, and he gets his id back, and he's free. That's kind of how the prison system works there. Alexa is an id romancer, so she helps the id wranglers and prisoners stay in line with her psychic abilities. Colby is an intern that works at Terrapin, and he's Alexa's assistant. So he makes repairs and basically does everything that she doesn't want to do. And Ogle is her, this is where the super ego and the id come into play. Thane would be the ego. Ogle is a super ego. He's Alexa's pupil. And these are actual physical characters. This is not just a metaphor. And they naturally the super ego is formed through learned behavior. So it is not as natural as the impulsive behavior as that we are born with. So basically, think of as the id as all this is the behavior you're born with as a child. I want that. It's mine. That's the id, and that's kind of why it's a problem in this world. The super egos basically, all of their behavior, they are taught to learn, how to help people. So that's why he's Alexa's little mentor, little mentee, and she teaches him, and he goes on patrols with her, and so and then Id is basically an id, and he's Thane's cute and cuddly id. Well, most of the time he is a shapeshifter. So that's the cool thing about ids, they do shapeshift, and he basically is Thane in every way, and he completes Thane to a T. And Thane is not whole with id, he's not whole without id, and without. I'm saying this in a way that's really okay. Sorry, he is not whole without id. That's his true personality. He's just a pretender. When you meet him, he's a pretender, basically. And you'll see him change. So, but yeah, that's kind of like about the characters, and for anybody that's been seeing me draw them all the time and doesn't know anything about them, hopefully you know a little bit more about them now. So.
And hopefully they will know a lot more when they are physically holding the book. So,
yeah, and I'm not like stumbling over my words. Yeah.
Well, so when this Kickstarter wraps up, what left is there to do before you get to send it off to the printer? Is there anything else?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've just got to finish the pages to the comic and make sure it's all good to go, and then send it off to the printer.
So when do you estimate? Your
I estimate to finish about October of 2018, and then get it printed, or like late September or whatever. And I think it was late September I wanted to finish it, and then have October in November, or at least full month of October, to kind of get everything squared away. And again, I am totally like overestimating here. I don't want to underestimate and under deliver. I want to overestimate and wait, what is it?
Underestimate and over deliver.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. Sorry.
Yeah.
And so so basically getting it. Basically, you're going to have it in your hands by December. That's the goal, December 2018. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've been moving pretty steadily, so seems pretty legit.
It should go a little bit faster now. There was life happened, and it's hard sometimes to get it out consistently, but should be able to get it out a little bit faster now. So.
Well, awesome. Well, Ashley, we've talked a lot, right?
We have.
We talked about old animation, and we talked about video games, and we didn't talk about how you didn't have save spaces or save cards when you were a kid. And we missed that, but that'll be for another day. We also talked about your comic and how you draw. And is there anything we missed? Is there anything we haven't covered that you wanna bring up?
Not that I could think of, and then probably later I'll be like, oh man, I did not explain that. But yeah, we're good now.
I'll be like, we'll do it 2 years from now.
Yeah, exactly. I remember the first time we talked about this like 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. I was like, I don't know what to say, and you're like, had to stop mid thing and be like, Ashley, just say it. I was like, okay.
That was a fun interview.
I was like,
because if people go back and listen to all these podcasts are up on the YouTube under the SketchCraft podcast. If you dig back a couple of years, you'll see interview with Ashley West and Velthaneus. And
I just remember somebody in the chat. We did that one live. I just remember somebody in the chat did that weird face where they do like the two like one O is they do like a little O and an uppercase O, and then they have like they're like, what the hell is she talking about? And it was like, oh my gosh. So. Yeah,
it was a good dry run for being able to pitch a product, right? Like, so, but you've grown, Ashley. You've grown not much in height, you're still not much, but as an artist, you've grown. So, and I'm really appreciative of you taking the hour and 17 minutes to hang out and talk a little bit about this. Velthaneus, easy way to find your stuff. Obviously, there'll be links, but people rarely click on those. If they type in Gang Feather, is that the easiest? Ashley West, what's the easiest way?
Yeah, Gang Feather. Gang Feather. Just type in Gang Feather, and you'll probably see like my Instagram come up or anything. Or just like go to what's your favorite social media? Just type in Gang Feather. Go there. You follow me or whatever. You don't have to follow me, but you can click on my link. It's usually there, and that'll take you to the Kickstarter. In fact, you could just say Velthaneus Kickstarter, and it'll probably take you to the Kickstarter. But there are links to this. And they're
indie books, folks.
We got
to support the indie artists because, quite frankly, you know what I mean? Like, you could say, well, Image will publish it. No, they won't. They will once there's heat.
And if you like can't find this, just just message me. Like, be like, I can't find it, but I want it. No, but I will gladly give you the link, whatever, So I'm just saying, there's always a way.
Always, folks. All right, Ashley. So with that being said, it is what day is it? It's February 26th, 2018.
Yeah.
And despite how late it is at night, I think you and I actually still have work to do, right? We gotta go do some work.
We do. No, I see. I'll be going to bed at like 6 a.m. tomorrow. Like, it's hard because like sometimes I'm like, well, it was night, or wait, no, morning. Yeah. It's oh man, the other day, like I saw it was like 6 a.m. I was like, the sun's coming up. No, like I never, like that's like my time. Like, get in bed, hurry, because I just I like to go to sleep when it's still dark. Like,
you need that fire hydrant pole right to your bed, so you can just like it's an emergency. It's time to sleep, before it's too late. So with that being said, let's get back to work, Ashley. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Talk later. Bye.
Bye.